The fire was meant to trap her, not test her. That single fact sits at the center of the story, because everything built around that moment was intentional. Every accelerant poured on the floorboards, every doorway blocked, every window barred. The people who planned it did not want chaos. They wanted certainty. They believed that if they controlled the environment, they controlled the outcome. They thought heat, smoke, and fear would do the work for them. They thought the blaze would swallow her and leave behind nothing that could fight back. To them, fire was a final answer. They had studied her routines, her strengths, and the edges where they assumed those strengths would break. They believed they had found a pressure point. Fire turns people inward. It makes breathing painful. It strips away options until the only thing left is panic. They counted on that. They counted on the moment where most people freeze, where instincts get scrambled, where survival slips into confusion. They assumed she would react like anyone else. They assumed wrong. But before that became clear, they were confident enough to bet everything on their plan. Inside the house, the smoke rose in heavy layers. The kind that blinds, chokes, and presses against the mind. Flames crawled along the walls in uneven streaks, jumping from one dry surface to another. To an untrained person, the room would have looked alive in all the worst ways. Shadows twist in firelight. The mind starts inventing threats it cannot see. The world shrinks to a tunnel of heat. This was supposed to be the moment she broke. This was the trap working as designed. But they misjudged the difference between someone who walks into danger and someone who has been taught to read it. Fire is chaotic to most. To her, it was data, a moving, burning map. She saw the draft points. She heard the way certain boards cracked compared to others. She recognized the signs of structural failure and knew how much time she had before the ceiling started to give. She understood the rhythm of the blaze in a way the planners never considered. They saw fire as a wall. She saw it as terrain. The trap was built on assumptions about human reaction, tunnel vision, panic, hesitation. She had trained to override every one of those instincts. That was the part the planners never accounted for. They thought the fear would swallow her faster than the smoke. They did not realize that she had spent years practicing how to push fear aside until it had no place to anchor. She had been cold, wet, exhausted, and pressured beyond what most people will ever face. Fire was brutal, but it was not new. It was not more intimidating than the instructors who had shouted in her face as she held a posture past the point of muscle failure. It was not more frightening than the nights where sleep was a rumor and quitting seemed like the only comfortable option. They also underestimated what happens when someone is trained to fight with purpose. She was not in that fire by accident. She was there because someone needed help. That clarity cuts through panic. When the mind knows why it needs to push forward, it finds space between the fear and the heat. That space is where decisions happen, and decisions are what keep people alive. The planners were counting on isolation. They imagined her alone, disoriented, forced into choices she could not make fast enough. But her training had taught her how to build mental order inside physical chaos. She tracked her position even when the smoke blurred everything. She marked the exits, even the ones hidden under flame. She calculated the places where she could move low, where the air was cleaner, where the temperature dipped, and where the fire had not yet gained strength. Every second inside the blaze was another second the trap was losing power over her. They also failed to understand that traps only work when the target accepts the role of victim. She did not. She refused to be the one cornered. She would not let the fire dictate her path. She was not thinking about survival alone. She was thinking about breaking the plan set against her, stripping it apart piece by piece until the people who built it would have to face the fact that they had not designed a perfect trap. They had only lit a challenge she was prepared to meet. The fire was meant to immobilize, intimidate, and erase. It was meant to be the force that made her stop fighting. But she had walked through too many hard moments to let heat and smoke claim her. The people who planned the blaze believed fire was absolute. They believed it was the one thing that could close the door on someone like her. They never expected her to study the trap, understand its weak points, and move through it with the same calm she carried into every high-pressure moment. They thought the fire would do the work for them. They never imagined she would turn their own plan into the thing that exposed how little they understood about what she had become. Training turns fear into focus. It does not erase fear or pretend it doesn't exist. It changes its texture. It teaches the body to feel a spike of adrenaline and stay steady anyway. In the beginning, fear is loud. It shouts, it rushes, it tries to take over. But with repetition, fear becomes a signal instead of a threat. It becomes a familiar noise that no longer pulls attention away from the task. Training builds that transformation one uncomfortable moment at a time, until the mind can look straight at danger and sort through it with clarity. This shift happens slowly. It comes from long nights when exhaustion sits heavy in the muscles, and the easiest option is to quit. It grows during drills that push the limits of breathing, strength, and patience. When the body aches and the mind screams for relief, training forces a person to stay present. In those moments, every instinct tells them to back off, to slow down, to escape the discomfort. But the process demands something different. It demands movement. It demands commitment. It demands control. Over time, those demands reshape the relationship with fear. Fear becomes part of the environment instead of an obstacle. It still sparks, but it no longer blinds. Instead of freezing, the trained mind leans into action. Instead of imagining worst-case scenarios, it begins scanning for openings, angles, and opportunities. Training installs habits that kick in faster than panic can. When the heart races, the breathing pattern follows a rhythm learned through repetition. When the surroundings grow hostile, the mind recalls previous challenges that felt just as overwhelming. Confidence does not appear magically. It is built from the memory of surviving moments that once felt impossible. Every drill is a chance to practice staying calm inside chaos. Crawling through tight spaces, swimming in cold water at night, holding steady under pressure that feels unfair. Each scenario is engineered to raise fear and then force clarity through it. The goal is never comfort. The goal is adaptation. When the body recognizes that fear does not always signal danger, it learns to work through it. Muscles adapt to stress. The brain rewires patterns. The person begins to realize that fear is not the limit. It is just the starting point. Training also teaches precision. High-stakes situations demand accurate decisions made quickly. Fear tends to scatter thoughts. It narrows focus onto the threat instead of the solution. But repetition trains the mind to separate emotion from action. A trained individual learns to identify what matters most in a single glance. They learn to prioritize. This is where fear loses its grip. When the brain knows exactly what to look for, the noise of panic loses power. Prioritizing becomes instinctive: where to move, what to avoid, who to help, how to stay alive. Focus becomes a practice skill instead of a lucky moment. There is also a physical component. The body changes in the process. It remembers patterns of movement that keep a person safe. It learns how far it can push before breaking, how to conserve energy, how to read its own limits without giving in to them. When fear spikes, the body wants to sprint without direction. Training rewires that reaction. It channels the surge into purposeful motion. Instead of scattering energy, it concentrates it. The body becomes an ally, not a liability. In the fire, this shift makes all the difference. Heat and smoke attack the senses. The environment screams danger from every side. An untrained mind would focus on the flames alone. But training directs attention to the pieces that matter: airflow, structural sounds, escape routes, timing. Fear is still there, but it gets filtered into usable information. It sharpens awareness instead of overwhelming it. The trained mind knows how to break the situation down into manageable steps, even when the world is burning around it. Training also creates a calm center that pressure cannot reach easily. This calm is not the absence of emotion. It is a controlled state built from thousands of moments where giving up was an option, but action was required instead. Stress loses its ability to dictate behavior. The trained person learns to work under fatigue, confusion, discomfort, and time pressure without letting any of those things control the next choice. That kind of calm is what turns fear into focus. It is what keeps the mind steady when everything else is falling apart. Over time, fear becomes a familiar companion, not something to avoid, but something to use. The trained individual learns to recognize the first signs of panic and redirect them toward awareness. They breathe through it, push past it, and act with intention instead of instinct. That transformation is not sudden. It is earned. And when the moment comes where fear should take over, training is what steps in and holds the line. Enemies underestimate what discipline creates. They see the surface and assume it tells the whole story. They look at a person and think strength comes from size, speed, or raw aggression. They rarely think about the quiet hours behind the strength, the repetition, the grind, the self-control, the refusal to take shortcuts. Discipline is invisible until the moment it is tested, and by the time enemies notice it, it is already too late. People who rely on intimidation misread disciplined individuals because they assume fear will work on everyone the same way. They expect hesitation. They expect collapse. They expect someone to fold under pressure. What they meet instead is a steady force that does not break the way they planned. Discipline builds layers in a person. The first layer is consistency, showing up when no one is watching, giving full effort when it would be easier to give half, repeating skills until they feel natural, then repeating them again until they stay sharp under stress. Most enemies only understand reaction. They do not understand preparation. They do not understand how many hours go into turning weakness into capability. They do not understand how a person learns to push past discomfort until it becomes normal. When someone is trained this way long enough, they move with a kind of certainty that cannot be faked. The second layer is emotional control. Enemies count on chaos. They try to provoke anger, fear, confusion. They want reactions they can exploit. But discipline teaches a person how to hold their center when everything around them tries to shake it loose. It teaches how to turn anger into direction instead of distraction. It teaches how to calm the pulse when the situation demands a cool head. Enemies see a face with no panic in it and assume arrogance. They do not realize they are looking at control. They mistake it for weakness because they cannot imagine staying that steady in that much pressure. Another layer is precision. People without discipline rush. They act without thinking. They swing wildly, make noise, burn energy. Disciplined people conserve every movement. They calculate. They stay deliberate. They do not waste breath or time. When an enemy steps in with sloppy aggression, the disciplined mind sees openings everywhere. It sees overextension, imbalance, hesitation. It sees the mistakes before they are finished. The enemy thinks they are on offense. They do not realize their own recklessness is handing over the advantage. Discipline also builds endurance in ways enemies do not see. Not just physical endurance, but mental endurance. The ability to stay sharp through exhaustion. The ability to think straight when the body is begging for rest. The ability to make decisions under strain without letting fatigue twist them. Enemies expect a breaking point. They wait for it. They plan around it. They assume that after enough pressure, anyone will crack. What they fail to understand is that disciplined people have lived in that breaking point so many times during training that it has lost its power. They recognize the feeling and keep moving anyway. That simple difference shifts the entire balance of a confrontation. There is also a kind of calm that comes with strong discipline. Not the calm of inexperience, but the calm of someone who has faced difficulty enough times to know they can walk through it again. Enemies read that calm as indifference. They assume the person does not understand the danger. In reality, the person understands it completely and still refuses to react from fear. That kind of calm is unsettling to enemies because they cannot shake it. They try escalation, threats, intimidation. None of it makes a dent. Facing someone who will not panic is like trying to punch through stone. The resistance is solid, unyielding, and confusing. Disciplined people also adapt faster. Enemies rely on predictable responses. They expect someone to run, freeze, flinch. When none of that happens, their plan collapses. Discipline teaches a person how to analyze, revise, and respond without losing momentum. It teaches them to stay flexible. When an enemy tries to trap a disciplined mind, the trap falls apart because the person inside it does not follow the expected pattern. They look for angles. They look for weaknesses. They find the opportunity the enemy never imagined existed. That ability to adapt turns the enemy's confidence into doubt. In the end, enemies underestimate discipline because they do not understand what built it. They do not understand the early mornings, the long nights, the failures, the corrections, the exhaustion, the repetition. They do not understand the hours spent working on tiny details until they became instinct. They only see the finished product, not the process that forged it. They mistake quiet strength for softness and steady movement for slowness. They assume the disciplined person is just another target. They never realize they are facing someone shaped by commitment, patience, and relentless effort long before any confrontation began. Pressure reveals a person's real strength. It strips away the polished version we present to the world and uncovers what sits beneath the surface. When the moment gets hard and the stakes rise fast, the truth shows up. Not the rehearsed answers or the practiced confidence, but the real core. Pressure does not pretend. It forces decisions, exposes limits, and highlights what someone can actually rely on when comfort disappears. It is the moment where instinct replaces performance and discipline replaces talk. Strength in these moments has nothing to do with how someone looks when life is easy. It comes from how they hold themselves when the situation turns sharp. Pressure has a way of shrinking the world. It narrows the choices until only the important ones remain. Noise falls away, and the mind is left with a simple question: what now? That question separates those who freeze from those who lock in. A person under pressure cannot fake clarity. They either find it or get swallowed by the situation. This is why pressure is such a powerful measure. It reveals who can take chaos and break it into steps. It shows who can stay deliberate when everything around them feels unstable. It exposes whether someone leans toward panic or toward action. Real strength is not loud in these moments. It does not come from shouting or showing force. It comes from calm. A calm built from experience, repetition, and discomfort that taught the mind how to stay steady. Pressure triggers fear, but strength channels it. It does not ignore danger. It works with it. People who have faced enough tough moments recognize the feeling and settle into it. Their breathing steadies. Their thoughts sharpen. They do not wait for someone else to lead or solve the problem. They start moving, even if the path is not perfect yet. Pressure also reveals priorities. When everything is on the line, people show what matters to them without even realizing it. Some protect themselves first. Others think of the person next to them. Some choose the easiest route. Others choose the right one. In these moments, character shows without decoration. Strength shows without explanation. A person who has trained their mind and body to handle stress will default to purpose instead of fear. They stay focused on the goal because pressure has already shaped them into someone who acts with intention. There is also a mental endurance that pressure exposes. Anyone can stay confident when the situation is friendly. Real strength shows when the pressure stretches across minutes that feel like hours, when the body starts to shake, when doubt shows up. People without practice fall into the spiral. They overthink, rush, or shut down. People with real strength settle deeper. They know how to keep moving even when the discomfort spikes. They know how to silence the internal noise. They push their focus to one task at a time and let the momentum build. Pressure brings out creativity too. When plans fall apart, a person's ability to improvise becomes part of their strength. Someone who has relied only on structure struggles when that structure collapses. Someone who has lived through unpredictable situations learns how to build solutions from whatever is available. They see paths others overlook. They find small openings and turn them into real options. This is not luck. It is the strength that develops from facing uncertainty often enough that it becomes familiar. Another part of strength revealed by pressure is honesty. Pressure forces a person to confront their limits. It shows where they still need to grow. It exposes gaps in skill and mindset. A strong person acknowledges those gaps instead of hiding from them. They adjust. They adapt. They learn fast. Pressure teaches them where to reinforce themselves. It is a mirror that does not lie, but instead of breaking them, it shapes them. Pressure also highlights resilience. Hard moments rarely end cleanly. Even when someone makes the right decisions, the situation might not respond immediately. Strength is the ability to keep going despite that, to absorb setbacks without losing direction, to take a hit and still stay aligned with the mission. Enemies, obstacles, and circumstances all try to shake that resilience. But pressure proves who can withstand the impact without losing themselves. Most of all, pressure reveals truth because it is impossible to escape. It compresses the moment into a test that does not care about excuses. It brings out either collapse or capability. It shows whether someone's strength is a story they tell themselves or a skill they have earned. When a person can walk through pressure without breaking, it is because the strength they carry is not borrowed or imagined. It is real, built piece by piece through every challenge they survived before this one. Survival is a choice backed by action. It starts as a decision whispered in the back of the mind, a refusal to quit even when quitting looks like the cleanest option. But that choice means nothing without the steps that follow. Survival is not luck or chance or hope. It is motion. It is clarity. It is the willingness to do what the moment demands, even if it hurts, scares, or tests every part of a person. When someone chooses survival, they commit to fighting for the next breath, the next inch, the next opening. That commitment turns into momentum, and momentum is what pulls a person through situations designed to break them. Survival depends on honesty. A person has to see the situation as it is, not as they wish it to be. Denial slows people down. Panic blinds them. Survival requires a clear look at danger, a quick assessment of what is real, and a fast turn toward the best possible move. It demands that a person set aside pride, fear, and the urge to freeze. Those who survive are not always the strongest or the fastest. They are the ones who recognize the truth of the moment faster than anyone else and act on it before the window closes. The choice to survive is made in moments where comfort disappears. Smoke fills the air, heat presses against the skin, time shrinks. Each second becomes heavier. Most people feel that weight and fold under it. They wait too long. They hope the situation will change on its own. But survival favors the ones who understand that waiting is the same as surrender. The ones who move, even when the path is not perfect, create options. Each action opens space. Each step disrupts the pressure that tries to crush them. Survival is also about adaptability. A rigid mindset breaks fast. Plans fail. Tools get lost. Exits close. Conditions shift without warning. The people who see survival as a choice stay flexible. They adjust their strategy without losing their commitment. They can turn a setback into a new direction because their focus is not on what they lost, but on what they can still do. This adaptability takes practice. It is built by facing unpredictable situations and learning how to recalibrate under stress. Survival thrives on that kind of agility. There is a mental toughness that grows around the choice to survive. It is not built on bravado. It is built on persistence. This toughness comes from pushing through discomfort enough times that discomfort no longer signals defeat. It teaches the mind to stay steady when fear rises. It teaches the body to respond even when it shakes. People who develop this toughness understand that survival rarely feels heroic. It often feels messy, exhausting, and ugly. But they keep going anyway because the decision was already made. They are not stopping. Survival requires discipline too. The discipline to follow through on the small steps. The discipline to control breathing when panic claws at the lungs. The discipline to think clearly when the situation tries to scatter thoughts. The discipline to put one action after another even when none of them feel big enough to change anything. Small actions stack up. They create progress. They keep the mind from slipping into hopelessness. Survival is a chain built link by link, and discipline keeps that chain from breaking. There is also a strategic element to survival. It is not just pushing forward blindly. It is choosing the right moves at the right time. It is understanding when to advance, when to hold position, when to shift direction. People who survive understand that a single smart decision can outweigh 10 desperate ones. They read the situation, predict how it might evolve, and position themselves for the best outcome available. They know that survival is not about perfection. It is about smart risk, awareness, and timing. Survival has a personal layer as well. The choice comes from something deeper than instinct. It comes from a reason, a promise, a memory, a responsibility. Something that anchors the person to the idea of living through the moment. That internal anchor gives strength when the body wants to collapse. It gives direction when the mind feels overwhelmed. Without that anchor, the choice to survive loses its force. With it, survival becomes a mission. The most important part of survival is that it does not depend on circumstances being fair. Pressure does not wait for a person to be ready. Danger does not pause so they can gather themselves. Survival demands action in the middle of fear, pain, and confusion. Those who embrace the choice understand this. They move anyway. They search for possibility even when the situation looks closed. They refuse to give the moment more power than their own persistence. They choose survival with every breath and every motion, proving that the will to live is not something that appears by accident. It is built, reinforced, and acted on until it becomes stronger than the danger standing in the way. Navy SEALs walk out of what others run from. That truth does not come from ego or myth. It comes from the way they are forged. Their training takes the human instinct to avoid danger and rewires it into the instinct to move toward the mission no matter how hostile the environment becomes. Most people look at fire, chaos, and uncertainty and see a command to retreat. A SEAL sees a problem to solve. They don't romanticize the danger. They respect it, study it, and step into it with intent. This ability to advance when everyone else is scrambling backward is built long before the moment of crisis ever appears. From the beginning, SEAL training pushes candidates into situations designed to break comfort and reveal character. Cold water, heavy gear, long nights, impossible tasks. Every piece of it teaches one lesson. When the world becomes unbearable, keep going. This habit becomes part of their wiring. It teaches the mind to operate with purpose instead of panic. It drills the idea that hesitation is sometimes more dangerous than the threat itself. By the time they earn the trident, stepping into danger is not a reckless choice. It is an informed one grounded in discipline, skill, and relentless preparation. Walking toward danger does not mean they feel no fear. It means they have learned how to function inside it with clarity. A SEAL entering a burning structure, a collapsing building, or a combat zone is not powered by bravado. They are powered by training that has taught them to recognize patterns, read environments, and act with precision while the untrained mind gets overwhelmed. They know how to slow their breathing, control adrenaline spikes, and keep their thoughts sharp. Fear becomes background noise, not the guide. This separation between emotion and action is what lets them take steps forward while others freeze or flee. A SEAL learns to trust their body and mind under pressure. When flames roar or gunfire cracks, average people overthink or panic. SEALs default to muscle memory created from thousands of repetitions. They know how to move low, how to scan for structural weaknesses, how to navigate smoke, sound, and threat angles. Their training has taught them that chaos has patterns. Danger might be unpredictable, but it is never random. This understanding gives them confidence to keep pushing through environments that convince most people to surrender. Walking toward danger also requires a strong sense of mission. SEALs are trained to value the objective above discomfort. They move forward because someone is counting on them. Someone is trapped, injured, stranded, or threatened. That purpose creates a level of focus that cuts through fear. Purpose is a powerful anchor. It keeps the mind steady when the world shakes. It reminds them why backing down is not an option. When others run, SEALs move forward because the cost of stopping is greater than the risk of advancing. Their ability to walk through the dangerous moments also comes from team culture. SEALs are never truly alone in spirit, even when physically separated. They come from a world shaped by mutual trust, shared suffering, and earned confidence. Every step they take reflects the expectation that they will not betray the standards set by those who trained alongside them. That standard demands courage without theatrics, discipline without excuse. It turns stepping into danger into a natural extension of the identity they built together. Seals also understand that survival in hostile conditions depends on forward motion. Danger grows when a person stands still. Smoke thickens. Heat intensifies. Threats close in. A trained operator knows that moving, even in small controlled steps, increases the odds of making it out. They walk with intention, not speed. They move into the fire not because they feel invincible, but because they understand that action creates opportunity. Running away is rarely an option when someone's life is at stake. Walking forward is the only path that leads to resolution. Their mindset is shaped by the acceptance that every environment, no matter how extreme, has weaknesses. Fire has patterns. Enemies make mistakes. Structures reveal their limits. SEALs are trained to look for these cracks in the situation and exploit them. While others see an unmanageable threat, a SEAL sees a puzzle. This perspective makes them effective where others feel powerless. It turns intimidation into analysis and panic into strategy. Most importantly, SEALs walk out of danger because they refuse to let the environment decide the outcome. They do not accept defeat from heat, darkness, confusion, or fear. They impose their will on the moment through skill, toughness, and control. When they move through flames or smoke or violence, they carry the mindset that nothing in front of them is stronger than the training behind them. They advance step by step, not because the path is safe, but because the mission demands it, and they were built to answer that demand every single time.